All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Monday, October 27th of 2025. Looking ahead here, we have some NFL showdown action with some Monday Night Football. We have some NBA action as well as some NHL action. So it should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS-related questions. Get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there's a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim team. Just can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and then we do this show on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So tune in any one of those days and get your questions answered. All right. With that said, let's get SaberSim pulled up on the screen, and we will jump into questions that are coming in. So, first question today, should I avoid the $4 40K 20 max front 4 tourney? The best can enter that one, correct? How do you feel about the $2 mini max? I feel like I could expand on this one. All right, so this is a contest selection question. This one came in on Saturday. I don't know exactly what slate this was for, but to answer part of your question, so yes, the best players in the lobby can see any contest over a 25K price pool. So that 25K price pool threshold is what kind of drives that there. So yes, the best players on the lobby could play this. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the $2 mini max is a better contest. What I would probably do in this scenario, okay, is, and I can just like demo this. So this looks like basketball. So let's say I go back to yesterday and we go to a basketball slate or really any slate. It doesn't exactly matter. Let's say we're doing this for football, right? What I would do is go and look at the ROIs of that contest and see which one has what I call like achievable ROI. Like, what are the highest sim ROIs in that contest? And then pick the one that has higher numbers. So like, for instance, right, let's say I'm trying to decide whether to play, and like, let's look at like 20 maxes. And let's say I'm trying to decide whether I want to play this 4K safety or play the play action here, right? And this is like the second play action. What I would do is these are probably going to be kind of similar because like effective entrants, but I think they're a good example. Open up the play action, go over to the users, just look at people entering 20 lineups and sort by sim ROI. Okay, highest numbers here, 48. There's like some 20%. Pick a number like a little bit further down. Sometimes there's some outliers at the top. Like, okay, people are getting like over a 20% sim ROI in this contest. Well, what about the safety? And then in this one, people are only getting like, this is not a good contest, basically, is like my determination here. Highest is like 10%, and you're pretty good if you're like above 0, right? I would not play the safety, and I would instead play the play action. Like, that is those are the insights I'm learning from looking at these two. I think you could do the same exact thing with the two contests that you mentioned. And if you're trying to do that for today, hey, look at yesterday's contest, look at last week, you can figure those things out. So that's how I'd answer that one. All right. Hey, Andrew, I was trying to find where I could see how my live ROI we're doing yesterday, but couldn't find it. Can you direct where? I can see it in the app, or is it only on desktop? Thanks. Okay, so the way you would do this is you would go to a slate that is in progress, And for instance, I think that the Sunday night football slates should be in progress. So it's prime time. So it says live in the slate selector. So you go to this contest that is in progress. And then what you do is you click on it. So then, say I do this post pattern. This is what we call like our live leaderboard. Now, this information isn't, all this information doesn't populate until all the games on the slate have locked. Okay. So it isn't until this Washington KC game starts that we're actually going to see, okay, hey, what is like the true sim ROI, the true sim win percentage, like based on how the games are going right now. We will be able to see the players who have locked, but then we'll see like blanks, right? Like, hey, this lineup doesn't have a flex. This one doesn't have a defense. This one doesn't have a receiver or two receivers or whatever it is. So you click on the contest and you wait for all the games to lock. That's how you see it. You might have more trouble doing this on a mobile, just so you guys know. It is a lot of information and lineups to like bring in. So sometimes like phone memory isn't big enough to like handle all of this. Contest size will matter, but that is at least how you do it. And just remember, both games have to lock, or all the games on the slate. All right, Andrew, how do you approach effective entrants for the smaller sports? The only contest I play in NHL is a daily dollar because it hits that 1K mark in unique entrants. Good question. So what I would do is start with our recommendations as far as like contest selection go, and then open up those recommendations slowly here. And I'll do an example. So we go over to NHL, we go over to the contest tab, right? And this was for yesterday, but like it's fine. So first thing you do is you sort effective entrants high to low. And then the first thing you do is you want your effective entrants based on our recommendations, right? Over 300. Okay. So then, yeah, you play the daily dollar. Great. But what if I want to play more than this? Okay. So then start opening it up. Okay. Do contests over 200. Okay. That doesn't work. Okay. Do contests over 100 effective entrants, right? Okay. Now you have some more options, right? Now you can get 26, 31, 36, $37 down. Okay. You want to play more. Maybe you want to play like $50. All right. Open it up. So it's just slowly starting from what we recommend and then opening it up as needed till you can get as much action down as you want. Now, I think there might be a case to like not to like have an actual floor, but it's going to depend, right? Like, I don't know if you should really play contests with like 25 effective entrants. Like these contests might just be like too sharp. There might not be enough bad players in them to actually like win. Like we'll look at like just like smaller kick save to see if I'm correct in that thinking or not. And I think the max was 35. Oops. Wrong spot. So there's like a couple good maxers. Another thing, right? This is actually a really good idea. Look at entries of different size. So like use greater than or equal to. And be like, hey, maybe maxing this contest isn't great. But what if I put 20 entries in, right? There's a couple high sim ROIers with 20. What if I put 10 entries in, right? Okay, there's some more with 10. So like this contest looks kind of bad if you max it, right? There's only not that many people here. But if you enter like 10 lineups, there's, a 14, a 13, an 11, a 15, a 20, a 20, right? Like I would say like, hey, you could probably very profitably play 10 lineups in this contest. So that's like another thing to consider as well. But just some ideas with regard to contest selection for hockey. All right. Next question. Hi, Andrew. Since SaberSim Classic was removed again, I want to see how I can build lineups the same way I always have. I usually reduce my global exposure to 50%, and then I generate 2 lineups under the single game method. What that does is it takes the number 1 single Saber score rank, and then it grabs another random high lineup, and it'll be a high number rank like 46, for example, and usually that second lineup is amazing, but now I've lost that ability to do that. Do you know a way I can get close to doing something like this with the whole new system? Okay, so you mentioned single game, so I'm assuming we could probably do this example for Showdown. All right, so the way I would do this, and let's say, you know, I'm playing, we said two lineups, right? That was the question here. Yeah, I generate 2 lineups under the single game method. Okay, so we're going to do 2 lineups here. So I'd open up my lineups, right? And then I'd have a group with 2 lineups. And then what we said is I would have a global max of 50%, save. And then in the flex, I would have another global max of 50%. Okay. So I've global max both of these. Let's say I'm going to build 500 lineups. So let's kick this off. All right. Lineups are almost done here. All right. So our pool is built. Check. Now, what I want to do here, I think, is make a small adjustment. Apply. Okay. I thought I'd be able to use portfolio here. Maybe not. Let's turn one of these on. All right, so for the sake of this, we're going to use Unique's one. It'll be the same either way. We just need a sorting metric. And we'll get this ROI. Okay, sim runs, check. I'm going to go to the contest sim that we ran. Sort by ROI. All right, so here. So the builder is honoring my min or max exposures. However, what it is doing different now that might feel different is it's not actually telling you how far down in your pool it had to go to get the second lineup, okay? So I think a way of showing this would be to add in the ROI column for this contest specifically. So here, right, my top lineup is ROI 608. My second lineup that it's using is 317. It's showing the rank as 2. However, if I go into my pool and sort by this showdown ROI, the top one is 608, okay? This rank is like messed up. It's like a bug, but the top one is 608, and actually it might not do that if I change it here. Okay, now it's in line. So 608 is the top one. The other one was, we said 317. So it's one of these two. So it's either 12 or 13. I can just check. $317.2. So I think it's the 13. Yeah. So the actual ranks that it's using are 1 and 13. However, it's just telling you like, hey, these are your top 2 lineups. So that might be throwing you off a little bit here, but you can still do the same thing. And then you can still get 2 lineups with using your global mini maxes here. So let me know if you have any questions about that, but that's what's going on. All right. When I sort my lineups by my metric, does Portfolio Plus take this into account, or does it go off of strictly ROI? Okay. So Portfolio Plus uses ROI. If you want to sort your lineups by your own custom metric, you need to change diversity to Unique's 1, and then that'll give you the ability to sort by a custom metric. Now, the way we generally recommend using this is like using a combination of portfolio and custom metrics. We say like, hey, use your custom metrics to take a pool of lineups, say 500, and whittle it down, you know, to like, I don't know, 250, right? Like use your metric to curate your lineup pool and then let portfolio have the final say about which lineups in your curated set actually go into your different contests. So there you're able to kind of use a little bit of both. But if you just want to sort straight by your metric, you're going to just change it here and then change the rank by. All right, next question. Seem to be running into issues when I set a min or max on a player that I want more of, or just to show up in the exposures, I end up with a lot of yellow boxes. Can you show how to resolve the yellow box issue? Yes. So I have an entry file here for the upcoming NBA slate that we can use for this. Okay, so I have 2 contests loaded up, 20 entries each, right? Just simple example. All right, now let's say I'm going to build 500 lineups. And we'll let this run. Got a subscription today. Let's see how we do. Right on. Glad you found the show. All right, so we're letting this build run so we can demo this. Mark said, thanks, Andrew. You're welcome. All right, so we got this loaded up, right? We ran our lineups. The sim is running. Diversifier is going to run in a moment here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start setting some min-max exposures, and we're going to see how we can resolve them. Okay, so I'm going to diversify. Okay, and we're all set. So what I'm going to do is cheat a little bit here to make this more likely that we run into issues. And I'm going to go and set some min and max exposures to players with a low pool percentage. Okay. So for instance, let's say I like Edgecombe, he's been really good to start the year, and I want to, put him in all of my lineups. Okay. And I'm going to make sure that I have this avoid duplicates across lineup groups on. Actually, let's do someone a little bit higher. Maybe Steph Curry. I want somebody over the 40 mark, actually, just because I want to actually be able to do it with 40 entries. Okay, maybe Cam Johnson feels fine. We do Cam Johnson, right? I do 100% minimum. I click apply. So here, there are 59 total lineups in my pool with Cam Johnson. Okay, there's 20 in this one, and I need 40. 40 total, right? So I should have enough. Now, the portfolio solver is not as good as meeting exposures as uniques is. So first thing I would try is switching to uniques 1 for both contests. The uniques are better at meeting the exposures. Okay, so first off, I do that, boom, I don't have the yellow boxes anymore. Well, what if I want to use portfolio, right? Okay, so then there's a couple different things you could do. The number one thing I would try, and I would try this first, is like, okay, if I know that I want a certain amount of this player, right? And setting the 100 was like an example. But what if I say I want, double his ownership, right? Like 20%. I would probably set the 20% and then rebuild lineups, because now I know what's going to happen is my pool percentage isn't going to be 11. It's going to be at least 20. So by putting more lineups with him in the pool, I'm giving myself a better chance of meeting the exposure request. Another thing I could do, right? Let's say I do that, still run into an issue. Try boosting his projection. You're basically setting the exposure because why? You think they're going to do good. So maybe, try a 1-point projection boost, rebuild. try a 2-point projection boost, rebuild. So some combination. I mean, the best thing to do is switch to uniques, but then you could also try min exposures and some projection adjustments as well to help you try and get there. So those would be my the sequence I would go through to try and get rid of those yellow boxes. All right, next question. In the aggregate metrics box, what settings do you recommend? I just have max/saber score. Good question. If you're on starter and you're using saber score, I really like a projection one. If I'm making changes, I don't want to lose too much projection, and what's too much? It's going to depend, right? Like average projections in basketball are a lot higher than NFL, right? So you kind of can't have a blanket rule. For here, right? Like if I were to drop, 2 or 3 points in projection, I would be like, okay with that. If I started dropping 5 to 10 points, I'd probably be like, that's like a little too much. And I might want to lower some of the requests that I've made. But I think projection is a really good one. And then if you have ROI available on your subscription, I would add ROI as well. But I like to use the averages. Average saber score with average projection is good for starter. Average projection, average ROI is good for ultimate. All right. I tried SaberSim a while back and did terrible, which I was as good as some of these people. The lineups it built didn't do me any good. Not blaming SaberSim. I just don't get how people get so lucky. Yeah, I mean, one thing to keep in mind is like I talked to some pros about this, right? And they say like the people you see like at the top of your contests or like the names you see pop up a lot, they're also probably entering the most lineups, entries, dollars, right? So you don't always know how somebody's doing unless you're have a look like into their stuff, right? So just keep that in mind. Food for thought. Next question. I'm looking at the lineup pool. Let's say I want to use my own. Okay, I answered this one. Good. Glad we got that one. And also, will that make the top ranked lineups enter first into the contest? So the way this feels, right, is like if you are using a custom metric, is it takes the top metric and then puts it in the top group. And then if you have this avoid duplicates across lineup groups, so like the top one would get like the top 20, and then the second one would get the 21 through 40 effectively, right? Because it's not going to duplicate them. So it'll remove the top 20 from consideration when moving on to the next contest. All right, follow-up question to my live ROI, but looking at my average ROI metric, will that also give me a better idea of how I'm doing as well? So if you're in the middle of a contest or like the middle of a slate, if you late swap and you look at average ROI, that will give you an idea of like how your lineups are doing based on like where you're at in the slate. So like if you're doing NFL and you late swap before the afternoon games, your average ROI is like a pretty good indication of like, hey, we think you're going in a positive direction today, or we think you're going in a negative direction today. So like, are we trying to maximize, your chances of winning here, or like we trying to salvage the day? And the average ROI will basically tell you that when the slate's in progress. All right, looking around here, looking in office hours, looks like we're caught up there. Looks like we're caught up here in the YouTube chat as well. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern for our next show. So until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.